All right, we are here talking Bud versus Spence, not Bid, as I wrote, but Bud. Um, Let me know what you guys think. Let me know who you think's gonna win. What questions you guys have about this fight? Because there's a lot of questions. Um, Super evenly matched fight. Took way too long to eventuate, but is here. Um, 2 months away, right? Yeah, almost exactly 2 months away. Uh, and I can't think of a more evenly matched fight. I mean, you had Hagler Hearns, similar. Roy Jones, James Toney, very similar, right? That's what I kind of equate this to. Um, Also, kind of in the experience aspect, sort of. James Toney had almost double the amount of fights when he met Roy when they fought. And Bud, interesting statistic. Tell me if you think this means anything. Bud has more knockouts than Errol Spence has total fights. 30 knockouts. Errol Spence has 28 fights. Their knockout percentage is almost identical. I think Spence is just a hair higher. But Bud has that experience edge. So what does that mean? Does it mean anything? I mean, it has to mean something. Experience always means something. I'm not saying it means he's going to win or lose because, you know, there's been tons of guys who have had whatever 20 fights and come in and have beaten people with only a, a small amount of fights. So I don't know what it means. What do you guys think? Do you guys think that the experience difference will play a factor? Because I don't know. I know that I'm glad this fight actually eventuated because we've waited what 5 years? I think 5 years, right? And it started looking a lot like Pacquiao versus Mayweather, right back in the day. Um, their egos jumped in, politics jumped in, and we ended up not getting that fight until later, and it lost its magnitude because Pacquiao, in between that point, got knocked out by Marquez, right? And it still made a lot of money. Some people have argued that that fight did better because people waited, and maybe it did better financially, which is really what matters, I suppose. But for us boxing purists, for us boxing purists, it definitely took away a lot because now we weren't as excited. Because the biggest thing about an exciting fight is that I don't think people realize this is when it's even. Well, two things. You have either guys who you know are like Mike Tyson, who are just Tasmanian devils in there and just roll through everybody, or you have fights that are even. And when a fight is even, and on top of that, two punchers who we know will take out anybody, then it makes it exciting. Big shout. What does Jay Sharp say here? Uh, Spence seems more intellectually aggressive than Crawford. Well, I don't know about that. I mean, what does that mean, intellectually aggressive? Spence does seem more aggressive at times. Crawford is very aggressive too, but I think Crawford is less. Crawford is more an angle guy, a patience guy. I think Spence is more come straight forward. But I was talking with Derek James, Spence's trainer, and I said, well, you know, Bud always changed up his style, and Spence kind of always has the same style. And he got kind of annoyed. He was like, really? What's Spence's style? And I'm like, well, his last fight against Ugas, he came forward. But then I'm like, oh, but against Garcia, he moved around more. Oh, against Port. So Spence does switch up his style, I think, a little bit more than we give him credit for. Um, but, but, let's see what Emilio says here. Back Maypac was bad for boxing. Finally, the whole world was watching it. It's boring, boring Slick boxing display of lead rights and a jab. Boxing was on top when punchers and heavyweights would match up in the 90s. Um, it you're right. It was a I don't know if it was bad for boxing because anytime you create a huge event like this, like Pacquiao Mayweather, when you create a huge event, it's good for boxing. But you're right, the fight itself was, I would say, disappointing, right? Because Mayweather turned into Money Mayweather, right? He had switched to Money Mayweather years before. People don't realize Money Mayweather was very safe, very efficient with his punches, and didn't have the same spark that Pretty Boy Floyd. Pretty Boy Floyd was knocking people out. He was really exciting to watch. So this fight almost mirrored that. Like if we would have waited a little longer, one of those guys might have lost, Spencer Crawford, and then we would have been like, then the anticipation, the excitement, all that deflates. So luckily, the fight still came right at the right time. So now we're excited. But who do you guys think is going to win? I want to hear it in the comments. Like, who do you think is going to win? I find this one of the most evenly matched fights you could possibly ask for. You know what I mean? Like, both guys are very similar in a lot of ways. They both have an ironclad will. They both have great power. They're both effectively and intellectually aggressive. Spence seems more of a thinker, where Crawford might be lanky and reactive. Sans forethought. I don't know what sans. Yeah, it's probably a typo. Forethought. Um, I think they're both thinkers. I think Crawford's a thinker too. You know, when you have a guy who's constantly switching his stances and taking his time, he's a thinker too. That's the thing. They're both thinkers. Who hits harder? Technically, I guess, percentage-wise, it's Spence by just a pinch. But who's faster? I might say maybe Bud's a little faster, a little bit, right? And then people talk about the accident. Do you think the accident had anything? Do you think the accident took a toll at all? Let's see what Emilio says. Spence, he'll be more motivated than ever to keep constantly pressing, controlled aggression, heavy body work. Okay. Crawford is going to be 36. Does age play a factor? It only plays a factor if it does, if that makes sense. Crawford has not shown any signs, right? So I don't think it's going to play a factor in this fight. I think they're both at their peak. I think they both haven't taken much punishment, which is a big one. If you don't have mileage on you, the age almost doesn't matter if there's no mileage. That's why you see a lot of guys start boxing late, right? They start fighting, at 20 years old or 19, but they can go into their late 30s, early 40s because they don't have that mileage. People don't realize there's two things that put on the most mileage in boxing. One is amateurs as a whole. Two is sparring. You spar too much, it doesn't matter how good you are, you're gonna get hit. It's gonna accumulate over time and have an effect on you. So, but they're both pretty clean. I think they're both pretty good. They both don't have too many miles on them. I don't show any signs. Now Spence did get some miles put on him, but it wasn't from boxing. It was from eye surgery and that car accident. So does that play a factor? You know what I mean? It's hard to tell. He didn't look like it his last fight. It didn't look at all like it played a factor. I mean, he looked ready to go. It looks like they're both meeting at the perfect time. Um, what do you guys think? I mean, who do you think is going to win? I really can't pick. If I had to pick, if I had to choose somebody, gun to my head, pick somebody. I will probably lean towards Bud, just because don't forget two important stats. One, Bud has more knockouts than Spence has total fights. Bud, another stat, has never lost, excuse me, Bud has never not knocked somebody out as a welterweight. 100% knockouts as a welterweight. Does that mean anything? I mean, the experience factor that Bud has definitely means something. How can experience not mean something? Does it mean that he's going to beat Errol? No, it doesn't mean that. But experience is a big deal, and he had, but then you could also say, well, he has age. He's older. I mean, what do you guys think? I want to hear what you guys think. I think, let's see what Amelia says. Crawford is maybe snapper and one punch power guy, but the strength and combat punches are with Spence. Compact punches are with Spence. Okay. Crawford did an exhibition recent activity versus Spence. Huh? What do you mean by Crawford did the exhibition activity versus Spence? I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means. But, and another thing to think about afterwards, I know I'm moving forward, but Boots, I hope Boots gets the winner, right? Do you guys think it's too early for Boots to fight the winner? He hasn't fought anybody. He hasn't fought any top tier fighter yet, Boots, but his skills are so, like, he passes that eyeball test. When you see him, you're like, this kid has it. This kid, he actually, funny enough, Boots reminds me if you took Spence and Crawford and just put them together, mix them up, and spit one person back out. That's what Boots reminds me of. I think Boots has a good chance of beating either guy. Which guy has more of a will? Spence or Crawford? Who has the bigger will? It's hard to tell. Boots versus Ortiz, Stanionis winner. Yeah, that'd be good. That'd be good. Boots needs one fight like that. He needs a Stanionis or an Ortiz or somebody. Because so far he's the only fighter he's really fought that I could think of that's relatively close to top tier will be Chris Van Heerden, who I think it got stopped in the first round from like a really bad headbutt or a cut or something. So we really couldn't see what Boots had going on. You know what I mean? We weren't really, not much was given. So I don't know. It's hard to tell. It's hard to tell. But I mean, I'm still having, you guys have been saying some good stuff, but nobody's really saying who do you have. I think Emilio said he has Spence, but who are the rest of you guys? Who do you think is going to win? It's a tough one to pick. Real even. I don't know who the betting odds are. I think the betting odds are last I checked, are for Spence, but we don't know. We'll have to see closer to the fight. That's going to change a lot. Closer to the fight.